not going to be a fun one today. It's the WIP Afternoon Show with Ike, Spike, and Fritz. I'm just kidding. It'll always be fun. Ike, how we feeling?
Spike, not much better than I was yesterday, late last night. Looking forward to getting it off my chest for the next 4 hours, along with everyone else. Jackie Baseball, holla at your boy.
Long drive home last night.
Yeah.
Long drive home.
That is true.
Yes.
Yeah.
For one time, it was twice as long for you guys as it was for me.
I know.
That's right. Yeah, that's true.
I could hear you cackling. Suckers.
Yeah, I'll go to bed. You guys have a fun hour and a half drive home.
That's right.
So this is your official Phillies 2024 Phillies eulogy, your official 2024 Phillies get it off your chest, your official 2024 Phillies, we all come together and discuss what went wrong. And we'll have time for you to do it who's listening. There will be time for me to do it, time for Ike to do it. But we don't call him Jackie Baseball for nothing. We call him Jackie Baseball because he truly loves this team, truly knows them better than anybody else. And at this point, with the Phillies losing in the division series, we thought it was most important that Jackie Baseball delivers the first part of the Phillies eulogy.
Yeah, I'm not mad. Mad was last year. Mad was losing games 6 and 7 at home. I'm more disappointed in this baseball team. This is a baseball team that had a golden opportunity in front of them to ride this wave of starting the season hot, like all they talked about, and carry it out and prove that they are actually a great team. And they are actually a team that is one of the giants in the sport. But what we saw last night is the end of whatever the 2022 to 2024 Phillies is. And I was so annoyed having to hear about how resilient they are and how tough they are and how they'll come out and we're going to grind out a ball game. They didn't. They laid down. They got pants. They got sunned by the New York Mets for 4 games. I mean, outside of 1 inning and just, I guess, real backs against the walls of losing 2 straight games at Citizens Bank Park, they got destroyed by the New York Mets. And I think what we learned about them is that they're really just front runners. When things are going great, they're front runners. They're out. They're shimmying on second base. They have the chief vibes officer, doing the playlist, and all that's great. But when the going gets tough and you got to sack up a little bit, they don't do it. They didn't do it last year. They didn't do it in the World Series. They didn't do it this year when they were facing the real expectations of go and get it done. Don't go on a fluke run like in 2022. Don't go on a semi-fluke run like in 2023. Go be a big boy. Go be one of the bullies in the sport. And they frickin' laid down. They laid down to a rival. And that's what's so annoying about their post-game quotes, which we'll get to. It was like, well, yeah, it's kind of baseball. No, it's not. No, it's not. You played like crap for 2.5 months. It was 2.5 months outside of a 3-week blip to really ensure you're going to win the division. But they did this to themselves. And we're going to be sitting back and we're going to be looking at these last 3 years as good times. Last night was the end of what was a wasted season. That was a wasted season. That was 2011 all over again, where they have hope. They have a good regular season, and they just fall flat. They play a bad brand of baseball. They don't rise to the big moments. They strike out a ton. They go for too many home runs, and for some reason, the bullpen completely cratered. They can't run this back. They need to have tough, real conversations about players that we've fallen in love with, about players that might not be here going forward, about a manager that I think, for the most part, the city is behind, and even the general manager. There has to be real conversations. This cannot be a time to run it back. This cannot be a time to say, that's just one fluke series against the Mets. No, it's not. You've gone backwards 3 straight years. 3 straight years. And last night was not that unexpected. My biggest fear was they were going to lay down. And I know Ranger, he showed some things. He showed some stones. But offensively, to continue to do that and do what they've done this entire series with the amount of talent they should have, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Like, I'm disappointed. I'm not mad. I was mad last year. But what hit me last night is it's over. It's over for this team, for this group of guys. Real conversations have to be had, even if star players are involved.
Yeah, very well said. And I echo a lot of what you just said, but mine doesn't derive from being sad. I'm mad. I'm mad and I'm angered that they've wasted a golden opportunity, a golden window. They really have. I fully believed in this team. I thought they were going to win the World Series this year. I wholeheartedly believed in that because I thought they were the best overall team in baseball. I thought they had the right players that would step up in the moment and would deliver. I thought past failures would be sort of a
motivator?
Not necessarily a motivator, something they could learn from. Right? Like something that the experience they would learn from those past failures. And it just wasn't there. They're still the same baseball team, idealistically, I think I'm saying that correctly, as they were when they surprised everybody and got there in 2022. As they got there to the NLCS last year, they're still the same baseball team. And you know what? It's not good enough. It's not good enough. It's not that it's not good enough because they are sure, you can pick out flaws in the team and areas they need to improve in. But the bottom line is they weren't good enough because they didn't step up when they needed to step up. They didn't step up when they needed to step up. There's enough talent on this roster to not be eliminated by the Mets. I understand the Mets were hot coming down the stretch, but you didn't just get beat by some fluky baseball team that caught lightning in a bottle. This Mets team has been this Mets team for 3 months now. They've been this Mets team. So you knew what you were getting. The realization that happened to me was that we lost to a better team. Like, we didn't lose. I don't want to listen. And quite frankly, I am proud of the fan base for the time that I've listened to the airwaves from last night. TK screaming his head off as I rode down the turnpike last night. I appreciated that, TK. To today, I haven't heard a whole lot of the bye, winning the division.
That's baseball.
Yeah. I don't want to hear that nonsense. I don't want to hear that nonsense. I don't want to hear that nonsense because the players didn't use that as an excuse prior to. Matter of fact, they felt offended that the Braves were using that as an excuse. So I'm mad based on what this team should have been and where they have let us down. And I'm also mad because, quite frankly, it's a team that I like that needs to be broken up. The daycare needs to be broken up. The buddy where Bryce brings all his guys in that he likes, and we got a great culture. I'm not saying you got a bad culture. Something needs to be shaken up. And if you're not going to shake up Topper, who we all pretty much love and like here as the manager, because quite frankly, he would be the easy person to change. You bring in a different personality. Depending on who you would bring in as a manager, I'm not so sure I'm against that. I'm just saying I don't believe Topper is the reason why they didn't win. It's these players. There's a comfort level there inside of that culture that needs to be changed. It needs to be changed. And quite frankly, the man that's pulling all the strings, look in the mirror, Dave Dombrowski. You hold some responsibility here too. These are your players. These are the players you gave Rob Thompson to manage. Wasn't a flawless roster. You could have done some things to put us in a better position. You didn't. This offseason, he's the one who's going to be in charge of remaking this team. And it needs to be remade.
So as we were watching the game last night, and we were there, we were at Citi Field, there was something about the Lindor home run, the Lindor grand slam, where it was crushing, but it was more crushing because you knew it was going to happen at some point. I think there was a point in probably Game 3 where it became clear that winning Game 2 was mostly just a stay of execution. They had no chance against this team. And not because the Mets were hot, but because what you said, Ike, they were better. The Phillies scored 5 runs in their 3 losses. 5 runs in the 3 losses. Mm-hmm. That is, for a lineup that scored the 5th most runs in baseball with a high-paid player at 6 out of the 9 spots, that is unacceptable. Look, here's the way I see this. This team thought they had everything won at the end of May, from the players to the manager to the general manager. And they took their foot off the gas collectively thinking that at some point it would just magically come back. And they are all guilty of it. The thing you said about culture, there is a difference between everybody getting along and having a productive culture toward winning. I'm glad everybody gets along, but that doesn't mean that everybody's going to get the best out of everybody else. I agree with you. The core, there are flaws with the roster. There are flaws with the culture in some ways. Doesn't mean they're bad guys. When I say bad culture, doesn't mean that they're sniping at each other, but maybe they should be a little more afraid of the consequences of not performing.
A little too comfortable.
A little too comfortable. So at the end of May, the players decided this division was over and they could just turn it back on. The manager, he is in charge. We don't think of Topper as a XOs, makes a clever thing, does this, has weird lineups. His job, like Charlie Manuel in a way, is to keep the players locked in, is to get the most out of the players. So the players basically took their foot off the gas at the end of May. The manager did not do what it takes to make sure they did not fall out of that. And the last thing that you mentioned, Ike, there about Dave Dombrowski, I think needs to be front and center in a lot of ways. Your job as a general manager is to get players who perform above what you're paying them. You need players on the roster who are outperforming their contract. Trey Turner is never going to outperform his contract. Never. He paid Trey Turner for the worst years of his career. Basically, he's only going to decline at this point. So Trey Turner, essentially the Tobias Harris of the Philadelphia Phillies right now. He paid Taijuan Walker, who wasn't even on the playoff roster. He paid Zach Wheeler, God bless him, but he's paying Zach Wheeler. I could pay Zach Wheeler when he's already here for the rest of it. He's 35 already. I'm glad he paid him, but when you're looking for what the general manager is going to bring in terms of value, who on this roster, aside from Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper, are outperforming what Dave Dombrowski paid them? None of them. And this is 2 straight trade deadlines that he has failed. He has failed. He had an opportunity to upgrade the team at the trade deadline, and Jack mentioned this at trade deadline time, maybe kick their ass a little bit and say, we expect more out of you. And we ended up with Carlos Estevez, who was bad when we traded for him and ended up being bad, and Austin Hayes, who is not an everyday player, and he's barely a platoon player at this point, and the first thing we heard out of Dave Dombrowski is that he's definitely going to be an everyday player. So, I am sad because this team is fun to cheer for, but watching them go down the way they did was disgusting, honestly. And the final thing is to just go back to what Jack said, the players on this team were not ready to be the team that everybody was gunning for. They were not ready to be the favorites. The relievers choked in this series. Kyle Schwarber choked. Trey Turner choked. Alec Boehm choked. There were 2 players offensively who rose to the occasion during these playoffs, and it was Bryce Harper and it was Nick Castellanos. I'd love to crush Castellanos today, but Castellanos did his job during this. So it is it's a sad moment. And it is probably a fork in the road for the organization, and we'll have months to discuss it. But now it's for you. 215-592-9494. What do you feel now that the 2024 Phillies are over? Is this an end of an era?